much, Mr Deputy Speaker. And I want to come on to the comments that the Honourable Member for Islington North made in the bulk of my speech to talk about housing. But can I first of all commend my friend and neighbour, the Honourable Member for Portsmouth North, for moving the address yesterday. She spoke with passion, wit and great substance about not just D-Day, the Navy, but also about Portsmouth. And Portsmouth has had a good week. Not only has my honourable friend moved the address, it is also the focal point today for the D-Day celebrations. And this week, the Conservatives took control of Portsmouth City Council from the tired and discredited Liberal Democrats, who, I can get away with saying that, Mr Deputy Speaker, since none of them are here in the chamber. This is a Queen's speech that is pro-business, pro-work and pro-aspiration. And it's on aspiration I want to focus my remarks today. The aspiration that people in my constituency across the country have to look after themselves and their family, to provide security for retirement and to have a home of their own. And it's the issue of housing I want to address first. Housing development was a big issue in the elections in Fareham. Demographic change and growing population means we need more homes if we are to enable people to get onto the housing ladder and accommodate families who are currently in overcrowded, affordable social housing. The challenge that we face, Mr Deputy Speaker, is where do you cite the 6,000 homes that are needed for sale and for rent to accommodate that demand. Fareham has expanded significantly over the last 40 years. Where I live in the west of the constituency, there used to be strawberry fields. But in the last decade, it's been predominantly brownfield sites that have been the focus of development, and not greenfield sites or indeed strawberry fields. Now, whilst this approach to development has preserved green space in a predominantly suburban area, there have been issues around the provision of infrastructure. We relied upon expanding existing schools rather than building new ones to accommodate demand. We tweaked road junctions, road layouts, rather than building new roads. GP surgeries have become overcrowded. For example, the Jubilee surgery in Titchfield has a ratio of patients to GPs of around about 2,500, compared to the average across the country as a whole of 1,800 patients per GP. As a consequence, GP surgeries have shrunk their catchment areas and requiring families that move less than a couple of miles to actually move GP surgeries because they no longer live in that GP's catchment area. Brownfield sites have imposed more pressure on existing infrastructure. But we have reached a decision point as a community about how we need to accommodate the existing population growth and where new homes need to be built. How do we build? Where do we build those 6,000 homes that Fareham needs? Brownfield sites have been largely utilised, so Fareham faces significant challenges. Do we merge existing communities so that Portchester merges with Fareham and Fareham with Stubbington, and Titchfield with Titchfield Common, creating a ribbon of development along the A27 which bisects my constituency? Or alternatively, do we create a new settlement where we create a new vision for the future, where services and infrastructure are tailored to meet the needs of the new community, rather than cobbled together based on what's already in the area? Now, Fareham as a community has decided to go down that second route, to go down for a new settlement within its borough boundaries, a place called Wellbourne, on a greenfield site north of the N27. Now, I'm the first to acknowledge this is not an easy decision for those communities bordering that site, such as Funtley, the north of Fareham and Wigan. But it is supported by the borough as a whole. And having Wellbourne in our borough plan, meeting the future housing needs of the constituency, does protect other sites from development. An application to build in the gap between Fareham and Stubbington is less likely to succeed, because we have a robust plan in place to meet housing demand in the borough. The government's planning reforms have been implemented to good effect in Fareham. But for Wellbourne to gain full consent from the community, it's vital the infrastructure provided is to a high standard, is provided when it's needed, rather than when existing services are creaking at seams. The developers get this, and they will be financing the bulk of the infrastructure themselves. Plans are in place for community facilities, new schools, and new GP surgeries. But a key part of the infrastructure provision is the creation of a four-way junction, junction 10 of the N27. This will improve road access to Wellbourne and to the north of Fareham. It is the main ask of the Sunderland LEP in their bid for the Local Growth Fund. I, the developers of the site, Fareham Borough Council and the Sunderland LEP have met the Housing Minister to press our case for this funding. 90 million bid from Sunderland LEP will ensure that the infrastructure improvements needed to our road and rail, to our road infrastructure to ensure development to take place across Fareham and also to facilitate improved access to the enterprise zone at Daedalus. So Wellbourne will meet the borough's housing needs. Without it, fewer people will get on the housing ladder. There will be significant upward pressure on house prices, and more families will be forced to live in accommodation that's too small for them. I think it's absolutely right, this government, to increase the supply of housing, but also to make it easier for people to own a home of their own. Owning your own home is an aspiration that many people save hard to meet. It took a decade of hard saving for my parents to buy themselves their first home. My grandparents exercised their right to buy their council house. And my own family's experience motivated me to help others on the housing ladder. That's why I support the government's Help to Buy scheme, which helps those who can afford mortgage payments but don't yet have the deposit that lenders require. So I think the measures that this government has undertaken and has built on in this Queen's speech to tackle supply through planning reforms and schemes to help affordability are vital to aid aspiration. We will only improve social mobility, tackle inequality, and make it easier for people to acquire assets such as a home of their own. I want to touch very briefly on the pensions reforms in the speech. I think they form also that part of the agenda around aspiration. The Pensions Minister should be commended for pursuing the collective defined contribution schemes. He recognised the shift in pensions where the burden of risk had been transferred from employers in DB schemes to individuals in DC schemes. His approach of tackling this through putting investment should help reduce the investment risk that individual faces. But I have to say this, and the pension tax bill, which the Chancellor announced in the budget, are part of a series of radical reforms to pensions that have been made since 2010. The implementation of auto-enrolment, the move to single-tier pensions, and the end of compulsory annuitisation have transformed the pensions landscape. And the Chancellor was right in the budget to recognise this new landscape and give people greater freedom on the use of their pension pot. The single-tier pension will float most pensioners offering excess benefits, so it's right to give more people freedom for how they use their pension pot, not simply roll over that pension pot into annuity offered by a pension provider. People aren't getting a good deal on the way the annuities market is operating at the moment. Freedom will force providers to sharpen up their act, offer better value annuities and a wider range of products to help people manage their income in retirement. But key to the success of these proposals is the guidance guarantee. We need to make sure that people are equipped to make the best choices for themselves. I know that from meeting with various stakeholders in the pension sector, this does provide concern. How do you ensure that people have good guidance at the right point in their life? Simply at retirement is not enough, when we know that people's needs change over the period of their retirement. How do we make sure we gather together all people's information about their pensions and savings so we can give them good quality guidance? Will there be digital services be in place? People can dip into and dip out of at will. Will advice always be face-to-face on the telephone, but more expensive than a digital service? How will we ensure that people actually take up the offers of guidance that's available so they can get the support and help that they need to be able to make the most of the new freedoms that we give? Getting the guidance process right will actually help more and more pensioners make better use of the assets they've accumulated over their working life, making sure they have the income they need in their retirement. But ensuring that people are able to build up a pension pot, ensuring people are able to save themselves, ensuring that people are able to own a home of their own and have good quality accommodation, whether that's in the private sector, owned and occupied, whether it's in the rented sector, are important if we tackle aspiration in this country. I believe that over the course of the last 4 years, it's going to make huge strides towards helping people realise aspirations of work, of a home of their own, of savings. We need to continue this work, and we need to continue this work into the next Parliament.